There is nothing sweeter than your cat giving you a gentle lick on the hand while you're petting them. But what if I told you that some kinds of licking have nothing to do with affection at all, and are actually your cat's way of telling you something is wrong? If your cat licks you obsessively, focuses on the exact same spot over and over, or has suddenly started licking you far more than they used to, stay with me until the end, because I'm going to walk you through exactly what's normal, what's a warning sign, and what you need to do about it. Before we get into it, if you're new here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and tap the bell icon, because every week I break down exactly what your pet's strange behaviors actually mean in simple, practical terms you can use right away. Trust me, you don't want to miss the next one. All right, let's get into today's topic. I'm a veterinarian, and licking is one of the behaviors I get asked about the most, because it can mean so many different things depending on the context. So let's start with the basics, so you have a clear baseline of what's completely normal before we talk about the warning signs. Cats are meticulous groomers by nature. They spend a huge portion of their day, sometimes as much as 30 to 50% of their waking hours, grooming themselves. Their tongue is covered in tiny, backward-facing spines called papillae, which work almost like a built-in hairbrush, helping them remove loose fur, distribute natural oils, and cool themselves down as saliva evaporates from their coat. So a cat that licks a lot in general isn't unusual at all. The real question isn't whether your cat licks, it's who they're licking, how often, and under what circumstances. When your cat licks you occasionally, especially during a calm, affectionate moment like being petted or cuddled, this is almost always a good sign. In the wild and in multi-cat households, cats groom each other in a behavior called allogrooming, which strengthens social bonds and creates a shared group scent that helps them recognize who belongs in their trusted circle. When your cat licks you like this, they're essentially including you in their social group, treating you the way they'd treat another cat they trust completely. It can also be their way of returning affection, almost like saying thank you for the attention you're giving them. Cats may also lick you simply out of curiosity about scent. If you've just used a new lotion, come back from being outside, or have salt from sweat on your skin, your cat's incredibly sensitive nose and tongue may just be investigating something new and interesting. This kind of licking is usually brief, situational, and stops once their curiosity is satisfied. Now here's where we get into the part of this video you really came for, because there's a very different kind of licking that isn't about affection or curiosity at all, and it's the kind I want you to be able to recognize immediately. The first major warning sign is licking that feels obsessive or compulsive, meaning your cat keeps returning to lick you again and again, well past a normal greeting or affectionate moment, almost like they can't stop themselves. The second warning sign is focused, repetitive licking of the exact same spot on your body every single time, especially if it's paired with kneading, or a slightly frantic, intense energy rather than a calm, relaxed one. The third warning sign is a sudden change, meaning your cat never used to lick you much, and now they're doing it constantly, out of nowhere, with no clear new trigger, like a new lotion or a change in your routine. If your cat's licking matches any of these three patterns, that's exactly the kind of licking I want you to pay closer attention to, because it's very often a sign of something happening beneath the surface. Let's talk about the biggest reason behind this kind of licking, and it might surprise you: stress and anxiety. Licking triggers the release of endorphins in your cat's brain, which are natural feel-good chemicals. For a stressed or anxious cat, licking becomes a way to self-soothe, almost like how a person might bite their nails or twirl their hair when they're nervous. Vets call this a displacement behavior, meaning it's an action performed to relieve internal tension rather than to accomplish any physical goal like actually cleaning fur. When a cat is anxious, this self-soothing licking doesn't always stay directed at themselves. Many anxious cats redirect that same licking behavior onto their trusted person, essentially using you as their calming mechanism the same way they'd use their own paw or tail. So, what causes this kind of underlying stress in the first place? Cats are creatures of routine and predictability, and they can be remarkably sensitive to changes that seem small to us. A recent move, new furniture, a new pet or family member, house guests, a change in your work schedule, or even rearranged furniture can all be enough to quietly elevate your cat's baseline stress level. The tricky part is that this stress doesn't always show up as obvious hiding or aggression. Sometimes the only visible sign is this excessive, focused licking, whether it's directed at their own fur or at you. The second major cause I want you to know about is pain or physical discomfort. This one is especially important because it's the reason this behavior can genuinely be your cat begging for help rather than just an emotional quirk. Cats are experts at masking pain. It's an ancient survival instinct, since appearing weak or injured in the wild would make them an easy target for predators. But pain has to come out somehow, and in many cats, it comes out as excessive licking, either of a specific painful area on their own body, or as generalized anxious licking directed at you as their source of comfort. Conditions like arthritis, dental disease, urinary tract infections, and even gastrointestinal discomfort or nausea have all been linked to increased licking behavior in cats. If your cat's licking has appeared alongside any other changes, like a decreased appetite, hiding more than usual, changes in litter box habits, or general lethargy, please don't wait this one out. That combination of signs is exactly when I want you to schedule a veterinary visit, because we can properly examine your cat and rule out or treat any underlying medical cause. There's a third cause that's a little less talked about, and it goes all the way back to kittenhood. Kittens that were weaned too early, meaning they were separated from their mother and litter mates before they were fully ready, sometimes carry that unfinished nursing instinct into adulthood. These cats may lick and sometimes even suckle on blankets, soft fabric, or your skin, especially while kneading, as a way of recreating the comfort and security they associate with nursing. This type of licking is usually more soothing and rhythmic than anxious, but it can still become excessive if the cat is using it as their primary coping mechanism for any kind of stress throughout their life. I also want to mention allergies and skin irritation, because this can create a kind of secondary licking pattern that's easy to misread. A cat dealing with flea allergies, food allergies, or environmental allergies may be intensely itchy, and while most of that licking gets directed at their own fur, some cats will also lick at your hands or arms more than usual, especially if you've recently applied lotion or products that smell interesting against the backdrop of their heightened, itch-driven sensory state. If you notice your cat also excessively grooming themselves, especially to the point of visible hair thinning, bald patches, or reddened skin, that's a strong clue that allergies, fleas, or another dermatological issue could be part of the picture, and it's worth a vet visit to check. Let's talk about what vets call overgrooming, sometimes also referred to as psychogenic alopecia, when a medical cause has been ruled out and the behavior is determined to be primarily stress-driven. This is what happens when a cat's self-directed licking becomes so frequent and intense that it actually damages their coat and skin, leading to thin patches, complete bald strips, or irritated raw areas, most commonly along the belly, inner legs, and lower back. If you've noticed this happening to your cat alongside the excessive licking directed at you, that's a clear sign that whatever is driving this behavior, whether it's stress, pain, or allergies, has moved past a mild quirk and needs proper attention. So how do you actually tell the difference between sweet, affectionate licking and licking that's a genuine cry for help? Here's a simple way to think about it. Affectionate licking tends to happen during calm, pleasant moments, is relatively brief, and your cat seems relaxed, with soft eyes and a loose body posture. Concerning licking tends to happen more randomly throughout the day, lasts longer, feels intense or frantic rather than gentle, often targets the same exact spot every time, and may be accompanied by other changes in behavior, appetite, litter box habits, or energy level. When in doubt, trust your instincts. You know your cat's normal behavior better than anyone, and if something feels different or off, it's always worth getting it checked out. Now let's talk about what you should actually do if you recognize these warning signs in your own cat. First, and most importantly, don't punish or push your cat away abruptly when they're licking excessively, even if it starts to feel uncomfortable on your skin. This can add even more stress and confusion to a cat who may already be dealing with anxiety. and it can damage the trust between you. Instead, gently and calmly redirect their attention, perhaps by offering a toy or standing up slowly to change the interaction, rather than reacting with frustration. Second, if you suspect stress is the underlying cause, try to identify what might have changed recently in your cat's environment or routine. Small adjustments, like giving your cat a consistent daily schedule, adding vertical spaces like cat trees or shelves where they can retreat and feel safe, and setting aside dedicated playtime each day can meaningfully reduce their baseline anxiety over time. Feline pheromone diffusers can also help create a calmer environment, especially during a stressful transition like a move or the introduction of a new pet. Third, and this is non-negotiable if the licking is new, sudden, or paired with any other symptoms, please schedule a veterinary visit. We can run a physical exam and any necessary testing to rule out pain, dental disease, urinary issues, allergies, or gastrointestinal problems. Treating an underlying medical cause often resolves the behavior far more effectively and quickly than any amount of environmental adjustment alone. Fourth, keep your cat mentally and physically stimulated. Boredom is an underrated contributor to compulsive behaviors like excessive licking, especially in indoor cats who spend long hours alone. Interactive toys, puzzle feeders, and even just 10 to 15 minutes of dedicated playtime can meaningfully reduce this kind of stress-driven behavior over time. Fifth, if you and your vet determine that the behavior is primarily anxiety-related and isn't resolving with environmental changes alone, know that there are safe, effective treatment options available, including behavior modification techniques and, in some cases, vet-prescribed anti-anxiety medication or calming supplements. This isn't something to feel discouraged about. Plenty of cats live happy, healthy lives with a little extra behavioral support. I also want to mention that some cats are simply more prone to this kind of compulsive licking than others. Oriental breeds like Siamese, Burmese, and their close relatives are statistically more likely to develop compulsive grooming behaviors, including excessive licking of themselves or their owners, even when their environment seems perfectly stable. If you have one of these breeds and you're noticing this behavior, it doesn't necessarily mean something is dramatically wrong, but it does mean it's worth monitoring a little more closely and mentioning to your vet at your cat's next checkup, simply because these breeds have a genetic predisposition toward this type of behavior. It's also worth talking about how this behavior can sometimes develop into a habit that outlasts its original cause. Let's say your cat went through a stressful period, maybe you moved to a new home, and during that adjustment period, they started licking you excessively as a coping mechanism. Even after your cat has fully settled into the new home and the original source of stress is completely gone, the licking behavior itself can sometimes continue, simply because it became a learned, self-soothing habit that persists on its own. This is actually really important to understand, because it means that if you address the environmental stressor, but the licking continues, that doesn't necessarily mean you missed something or that the problem is getting worse. It often just means the behavior needs a bit of extra time, patience, and gentle redirection to fully fade out, sometimes taking around a month or so even after the underlying cause has been resolved. I also want to touch on the role that your own reaction plays in this behavior, because it's more significant than most people realize. Cats are incredibly perceptive, and if your cat licks you and you respond with lots of attention, whether that's petting them, talking to them in a soothing voice, or even gently laughing and pulling your hand away, you may be unintentionally reinforcing the behavior. This doesn't mean the underlying cause isn't real, whether it's stress, pain, or an early weaning habit. But it does mean that your response can influence how often and how intensely your cat repeats the behavior going forward. This is exactly why gentle redirection, rather than an emotional reaction in either direction, tends to work best. You're not ignoring your cat or being cold toward them. You're simply not giving the behavior itself extra fuel to continue. Let me also share a quick example that illustrates how these different factors can overlap in a single cat, because in real life, it's rarely just one clean, isolated cause. Imagine a cat who was weaned slightly early, giving them a natural tendency toward comfort licking and kneading. Now imagine that same cat experiences a household change, like a new baby or a new pet, which raises their baseline anxiety. That combination can turn what might have been an occasional, mild comfort behavior into a much more frequent and intense licking habit directed at their favorite person. Understanding that these causes can layer on top of each other is important because it means the most effective solution often isn't just one single fix, but a combination of environmental changes, patience, and sometimes veterinary support working together. One last practical tip before we move into the recap. If you're trying to figure out what might be triggering your cat's excessive licking, keep a simple log for about a week or two. Note the time of day the licking happens, what you were doing right before it started, whether your cat seems relaxed or tense during it, and whether anything unusual happened in the household that day. Patterns like licking that only happens right before you leave for work or only after a loud noise outside can give you and your veterinarian valuable clues about the true underlying cause, making it much easier to address effectively rather than guessing. I want to leave you with this thought before we wrap up. Most of the time, when your cat licks you, it really is just love, plain and simple, and you don't need to overanalyze every single lick your cat gives you. But now you know the difference between a gentle, affectionate lick and the kind of obsessive, focused, or suddenly increased licking that can genuinely be your cat's way of asking for help. That awareness alone puts you in a much better position to catch a problem early, whether it's stress, pain, or something else entirely, long before it becomes a bigger issue. Let's do a quick recap so you can walk away with the key points. Occasional calm licking during affectionate moments is a normal bonding behavior, and there's no need to worry about it. Watch for licking that feels obsessive, is focused on the exact same spot every time, or has suddenly increased with no clear new trigger. The most common underlying causes of concerning licking are stress and anxiety, pain or physical discomfort, early weaning, and allergies or skin irritation. If you notice bald patches, red or irritated skin, or other changes like reduced appetite or altered litter box habits alongside the licking, schedule a veterinary visit right away. Never punish your cat for this behavior, since it will only add more stress. Instead, gently redirect their attention, reduce environmental stressors, keep them mentally stimulated, and don't hesitate to get your vet involved, especially if the behavior is new or escalating. Your cat can't tell you in words when something's wrong, but behaviors like this are their way of communicating with you, and now you know exactly how to listen. If this video helped you understand your cat a little better, do me a favor and share it with another cat owner who might be dealing with this exact thing. Drop a comment and let me know if your cat has ever licked you like this. I read every single one. And if you haven't already, make sure you're subscribed with notifications turned on, because every week I break down another one of these behaviors, so you always know exactly what your cat is trying to tell you. I'll see you in the next video.